Welcome back, Village, to another episode of Jedi Learning with Baba Kintu. And a happy new year to you as well. Happy holidays. Today, we will be discussing some very, very deep information that I think the people out there really, really need and want to hear. And we will be decoding Disney's Soul. If you got a chance to see that movie over the holiday season, it was a fantastic movie. One for the whole family. Everybody can enjoy it. Beautiful, bright colors. Beautiful music, fantastic acting. The animation was off the chain. The storyline, the plot, it was so much in there that I don't even know where to start. But what we should start with is just a nice little summary of what happened in this particular movie. So just to give you a little bit of background, this movie was released on December 25th, straight to streaming. It is the first Disney Pixar movie to depict an African-American protagonist. So basically a black male lead actor. And it was a really, really good showing, if you ask me. But that does not mean it was not without its setbacks. Remember, we're dealing with Disney here, so you always have tons of hidden meanings. You always have tons of psychological and metaphysical lessons that you need to learn. And if anybody has ever tuned into Jedi Learning, you know that's what we do. So let's get on into it, without any further ado. So the first place I want to start is just a little bit about the storyline. So essentially, a brother by the name of Joe, living at home with his mama. It's already stereotypical, as you can see. But he is a junior high school music teacher. And he loved jazz. Yeah, he off the chain on them keys. And as a matter of fact, he's able to go in and out of dimensions literally just by playing the piano. We'll get into that in a second. But Joe wants to be a musician 24/7. His mama thinks he should get a job at the public education system so he can have good benefits and a retirement and all that type of stuff. So Joe and his mama are constantly fighting. Joe, when he finally gets his big break, ends up falling down a manhole cover and going into the next dimension. Okay, he transcends, or he goes into the between, which is called the zone. Basically, he unconscious, still alive, but unconscious. While he's unconscious, he gets to travel to the great beyond. Anybody know what the great beyond is? It's just another form of heaven. So he goes to the great beyond, and when he finds out what he's really there to do, which is transcend and to go into the light, he says, no, it's not time for that. He makes a U-turn and he tries to go back. But in doing so, he doesn't go back into his body. He goes into something called the great before. So this is one of the topics I want to hit on. African spirituality constantly talks about and discusses the issue of where were you before you were born? Who were you before you were you? It's a very, very interesting question. We always talk about what happens after death, but not many people talk about what happens before you got here. And this movie does a great job. And they call it the great before. So when they get there, Joe sees all these little baby souls running around getting ready to go into this human life so they can exist on Earth. But he finds out he has to be a mentor in order to, work with these, essentially their children, but basically their baby souls getting ready to be put into a body. So he finds this one soul that he's paired up with by the name of 22. 22 is off the chain. For millennia, 22 understands, why would I want to become a physical body so I can have to eat and sleep and work every day and do the same thing over and over and then just die to come back here. So 22 is like, I see beyond that. I just want to stay here. So everybody has mentored 22, and this is Joe's turn. So Joe finally mentors 22. They go through their trials and tribulations. 22 finally finds out that they actually do want to be a body by living in Joe's body. We'll tell you how that all happens in a second. So once 22 gets their 7th badge, all these souls are running around with only 6 spots, with that 7th spot needing to be fulfilled. Once 22 gets that 7th spot, they go ahead and then come back down and begin to live here on Earth. While Joe is supposed to be dead, he does an excellent job, such an excellent job working with 22 that they give him another chance at life. And he gets to understand and appreciate everything that happened in his life, because for a while, he thought it was lost. Now, there are a lot of things that happen in between that we're not going to get into because we'd be here all day. But essentially, Joe is also able to go into this great beyond by going into the zone. Now, everybody can go into the zone. All you have to do is basically something you love until you tap and literally lose yourself in it. Once you get there, that's where you can get into the zone, okay? It is almost like being unconscious. It's like the flow. It's like Michael Jordan when he's scoring 60 points. It's like Wayne Gretzky back in the day when he was doing his things on the ice, okay? It's like the clown dancers, Tommy the Clown and them doing their thing when they out there dancing. They go into a zone, into a whole nother world, and they come out with some moves you've never seen before. And matter of fact, Dance Battle is referenced by 22 in this particular movie. She talks about settling her disputes with Dance, such as Tommy the Clown would say, you got some beef? Let's battle, okay? But be that as it may, there are a lot of things that we touch on philosophically, metaphysically, psychologically in this movie that I think the people need to know out there. For one, you're talking about a soul by the name of 22. Now, a lot of people might not know, but if you're into numerology or anything like that, you know the number 22 is the master number. It doesn't need anything to tell it how to become who it is. It is already the master. It is a mirroring as well. The 2 and the 2 are exact replications of each other. So if you ever hear the term catch-22, it's essentially stuck between a rock and a hard place, or something that you can't get out of because solving the problem only leads to you having more problems. For example, I lose my glasses. What do I need to do to find my glasses? I need to look for them, but I can't look for them if I don't have my glasses. That's a catch-22, and that's what you're dealing with soul number 22. She's stuck in this dimension, doesn't want to go to the next level, is comfortable where she is, but is really, really hard to work with. She's been mentored by everybody from Muhammad Ali to some of the other great souls out there in the land. So you got 22. You can also remember, if anybody looks back to a movie or to a series, Twilight Zone, there was an episode called 22. What happened in that episode? It was about a woman who would have a recurring dream about her going downstairs, going into a room 22, which was covered in a checkered floor. And once she got to the room 22, a nurse would open the door and say, "Room for one more, honey." Basically, room 22 was the morgue. Throughout that particular episode, she has this recurring dream. She goes to the psychologist. He tells her there's nothing wrong with you. It's a figment of your imagination. She finally says, you know what? I'm going to get out of here. I'm in the entertainment industry. I want to go back home. Let me hop on this plane so I can go there. Her plane is plane 22. Everything that's happening in the dream is starting to happen in real life. She drops and breaks a glass. This is something that always happens in her dream. Finally, she gets to the door, and who comes out as the airline stewardess? Yep, the same nurse that was at the morgue. And guess what she say? "Room for one more, honey." So the person runs around screaming, hops off the plane, goes back into the airport, watches her plane 22 take off, and guess what happens? The damn plane blows up in the sky into bits. So she was able to see in between dimensions. She was able to see the metaphysical that was happening. It didn't happen in the third dimension, the physical. It happened beyond that. So she wasn't necessarily dead. She wasn't awake. She was in the zone in between. So this just gives you a little background on what 22 really represents. Once again, we're talking about Disney movies, and Disney movies are very, very adept at putting metaphysics inside of their movies, especially the children's movies. Okay, a lot of these movies are not necessarily for children, although they are geared and advertised to children. So, what are some other key points that happen there? African spirituality talks about going into the light when you make your transition or when you go to the other side. The Pert in Heru is an ancient Egyptian term that basically means to go into the light, to be awakened, the Great Awakening. And you see that depicted in this movie, where all the souls who are going to the great beyond are absorbed into this great ball of light. It looks just like the star Sirius. Where did the Egyptians say that their heaven was? The star Sirius. They called it the Seket Aru, or the fields of peace. They also said that's where you came from before you became a human, and that's where you go after you make the transition. So this movie once again, is really, really on point when it talks about African spirituality. But, and here's the big but, there are some problems. For one, if you look at the gods when you go into the great beyond and you listen to them, none of them sound like they are of African descent. They actually all have British accents. Okay, you might say, well, why is that problematic? Well, you just have to look at history for the last couple of 100 years. Who attempts to be the authority on all things? What type of accent must you have if you are the authority on all things? And things are played out once again. If an African or an Indian or a Hispanic or anybody else goes to the heaven, they should have somebody there that speaks their language. That was not the case here. And so, when Joe went to the heavens, wasn't nobody up there that sounded like him. There was nobody up there that even sounded like Desmond Tutu. There was only people up there sounding like some Pierce Brosnan, okay? That was problematic for me. Not only that, but even when Joe was to go into the zone, he had to go find a hippie, new age white person who was spinning signs on the corner. So all of his ability to go in and out of dimensions was guided over by proper British accented Europeans. Now, this is problematic once again because it gives Africans the sense that the only true authorities, the only gods, the only ones that can get you to the zone are these people with these British accents. And that is not the message you want to send. It is never directly stated there, but metaphysically, it's written all over your face. But it don't stop there. Joe, once again, is living at home. Never talk about a love interest that he has. He's living at home with his mama, okay? He wants to play all day. He wants to play music. Eventually, he figures out there's more to life than just playing music, which is excellent. But there is no family structure there besides him running around playing with the cat. But this is the real kicker. After Joe's accident, he goes into a coma. When he goes into the zone to come back from the coma, he accidentally falls into a therapy cat's body, and 22 accidentally falls into his body. So for a majority of the movie, Joe is running around, and Joe is an African-American man, running around with the voice of a middle-aged white woman played by Tina Fey. So for children, especially black children, to sit there and watch a grown black man talk like a middle-aged white woman is feminizing. So Disney, once again, has participated in the feminizing of black men through this movie. Now you might say, come on, Bobby Kintu, it's just a movie that you just need to watch on face value. You're supposed to laugh at it. You're supposed to just have a good time with it. The people who are putting this stuff out don't think like that. The people who are putting this stuff out not only want to advertise and get your money, but they also want to keep the power structure the same. And they do that by programming the children. And these are excellent ways at doing so. You give them examples and you make them fun and you put music behind them and you get the emotions all wrapped up in them. And then they take these things without even questioning them. So those were just a few of the problems that I saw with this particular movie. I can keep going on and on, but we might have to do an extended version of this if I had to do something like that. And maybe we will, because this is just a little short anecdotal breakdown in Decoding Soul. So overall, once again, it was a good movie if you look at it just with your two eyes in the third dimension. But if you look at it with your third eye, metaphysically and spiritually, just like the movie is about metaphysics and spirituality. It's much more to it than that. But I will say, the movie does have a good message. The message being, you are not your body. You are not your mind, and you are not just your soul. You are an internal being who has infinite possibilities. There is not one thing that can fulfill you. There are many things that can fulfill you. And once you find it, you have to use it as a tool to go in and out of the zone. But if you become obsessed with it, you can get locked up and end up as a lost soul. Those were some key points, and the key points that I took away from the movie. So if you do any background research, you will see that the person who wrote this movie was very heavy into metaphysics and to psychology. That's why even Joe, when he comes back and he becomes a mentor, he goes into a child psychologist's body by the name of Bjorgensen, basically another white male. So even when Joe comes back to go back into his mentorship, he has to pose as somebody else, namely a white male. So it's riddled and laden with these types of references, and you have to watch it for yourself. So you might say, Babakin 2, should I go watch this? This is not for me to say you should or you shouldn't. I'm just letting you know what's in it. You have to make that decision for yourself. This has been another episode of Jedi Learning with Babakin 2, and we have just decoded Disney's soul. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, we would definitely love to hear them. And we might even do a part 2 because there's so much stuff that I still want to hit on, but I don't want y'all falling asleep out there. So without any further ado, always come back to JediLearning.com where anyone can learn to learn, and we will see you soon. Peace.